Okay, I want to talk about how to escape the matrix. Well, let's try to define the matrix. One thing is the social fabric in which everyone, let's say, have certain manners, have certain habits, and have certain repetitive behavior. Yeah, this is what creates the social cohesion. So a matrix is also, let's say, something like a mesh in which it serves a reference to build up something. Yeah, let's say is the minimal kind of condition in which something can happen in society. Then, interestingly, the Matrix, the movie, also relates to this as socially engineered digital environment in which humans thrive and are exploited with machines. In my experience, yeah, it's not as the Matrix, in which machines harvest power. It's likely machines harvesting your data. Yeah, you're still living, being conscious, but I'm conscious. Most of the people cannot define consciousness. Most of the people doesn't do consciousness exercises like, let's say, breathing, or let's say doing some kind of. Oh, sorry, that's the alarm. 1 second. All right. So, the Matrix in the movie becomes a place in which humans appear only digital, and they don't know that they are somehow unconscious and their body is somewhere else. And that somewhere else is a world in which already the ozone layer was screwed, etc. But it's also the Matrix. The movie is also related with the Platon's cave allegory. If you read the Platon's cave, you will find that most of the philosophers describe very badly the allegory. Actually, it's usually they say something as simple as you go inside a cave, there are some shadows, the prisoners are looking at the shadows, they are in chains, and these shadows create the reality for the prisoners. The prisoners, even when they are free, they continue without the chains, they continue believing the shadows. Well, there are many things that are missed there. When you read the Plato's cave, your goal is to go outside and see reality. And when you go outside, there is a beautiful, let's say, allegory in which the person who goes outside the cave see everything so bright that cannot see anything at the beginning. And that happens with truth. When you have truth, it takes a while to comprehend what's going on. Usually it seems to be the right hand side of your brain that assimilate these new truths, because this is not built on a logical kind of logic or reasoning. This is not built up as language, or let's say a kind of, let's say, a cluster of knowledge. No, reality is the cluster of all knowledges. Then it means that over that you will filter everything that you have now known before. Then when you start to see truth, the text says that your eyes go blind. But as time passes, you start to see clearer, closer to you, and then the things that are not in focus but blur start to get a sharp focus through time. Then you start to see everything clear, and then you start to explore reality in that way. Well, That's in the Plato's allegory. You are able to see through, seek through, and go outside. With this technology, it will be as the Matrix. You unplug yourself from the Matrix to go inside the cave. You don't go outside. You actually go to Zion, which is the name of the city there, which is the cave. Inside, you live inside the cave. You never leave the cave. I think it's in the third movie. Yeah, that they leave the cave, and yeah, they see the ozone layer was screw. It's only smoke. You never see the light in the movie. So think about this, because one of the most beautiful places is when you leave the cave. I mean, one of the most beautiful parts of the text is when you leave the cave and then you start to see everything clear with light, and the light blinds you, but then slowly you start to see the shape of things that you haven't seen before, and you start to see the things as they are, and you start to know truth instead of shadows. But this time in the Matrix, you leave the cave in the third movie. Yeah, they fight the machines, and they continue seeing shadows. It's just smoke. There is no ozone. There is not light. So this is a very interesting thing in the Matrix. Then with this technology, you cannot escape the Matrix. Actually, with this technology, if you escape the Matrix, then you'll be a screw, as I am. I can go out in society, but let's say as soon as I'm alone, I will be conditioning to listening to high pitch sounds, like like a strong buzzing sounds or something like that. And also, it feels that the voices increase as soon as I arrive to my place. So this is the duality. This is normal in, let's say, military strategy, in which, let's say, you don't say that you create the problem, but at the same time the problem is still there. So this is dangerous, but also follows a path that has been historical. Is this kind of, let's say, social kind of imprisonment usually start with secret punishments, but with time it has kind of moved towards institutions, until the point in which the institutions are happen to be in community. So it's like, for example, the use of bracelets to keep prisoners outside, track with GPS. The surveillance state allows you also to kind of keep track of everyone, or anyone of interest. And well, not saying that I know that as a fact, but it feels that in my case it is. It's simple as, maybe I don't know why. I'm still trying to understand why this is happening to me, but it feels as doesn't matter what I say here. Most of the people that live in the condition like me will be algorithmically somehow isolated to each other, so we cannot get together and in some way make people conscious of what's going on, that eventually gonna happen to them, other kids. Very likely for now on, everyone who has kids will not afford to raise these kids in an environment in which the kids are carefree, not anxious, let's say creative and daring of exploring. Actually, the more creative and more daring people will be the first one to be punished, because this will be seen as deviation. And as more disobedience happen with deviations, I see no reason for which this technology will not simply continue growing to stop this kind of behaviors that seems to be not preferable for power. Why they are not preferable for power? Because power demands certainty, and certainty means security, and there is no limit for this. There is not limit for security, there is no limit for certainty. So in the long term, also, in order to keep a social class, it's well known that groups tend to have preferences towards their own group when it comes to decision making, and this decision making eventually end up strengthening the group. And since a system itself seems to work around one group because it doesn't collect feedback from the other groups, instead is they produce their own feedback in which they deploy the power over the other groups, then it creates a situation in which power, becomes more, why the AI you say is secretive, but I was thinking that power becomes more likely to exert grip, exert discipline, punishment, exert loss, let's say a huge amount of loss, and also a huge amount of what will be violence, because where there is not power, violence start to reign. So some people say that power, when I talk about power, is in non-context, but there is a distinction between power and violence. Power is given. It's usually people who say, okay, you have the control of the situation, just we allow you to do something, just do it right, Violence is enacted when there is no power, when people has not given consent, then violence becomes a means in which you can do what you want the other to do, but it's not because the other one have give you consent to lead or to take a certain position of power of decision making, but instead violence becomes a mean in which you could simply attack, be violent, and create fear and modulate the situation in that way. Authority is when someone has been delegated under the label of authorized to do something in such a way that this person is authorized, has authority. It doesn't need to be elected, this person doesn't need to have guns, power, or something threatening. It simply has been put there as someone delegated to do something. So these are three distinctions in which, let's say, the common version of, let's say, the convenient version of power, can be somehow exerted. Okay. So in the Matrix, we have this situation in which Neo kind of fights a machine or whatever. That then he never wins. You see in the movies, he just continue doing his stuff, living, but he never wins. So also, it's very interesting that he's supposed to be a person who leaves the Matrix and then can navigate the Matrix as he wants. And this is again the story about the hero, this phenomenon in which we believe that one person will be the main character that will bring freedom to others, and this is a dangerous rhetoric because the use of the hero is usually a situation in which if this person doesn't sacrifice itself, then besides not being or not having the kind of virtues that we expect from the Western world, then it won't be something worth it to say in history, because we expect something that ethically continue following the rhetoric from, let's say, um, Jesus Christ as the Savior who sacrificed itself, but still is the most powerful person because he's the Son of God, like the chosen one, and then it becomes destiny. And at the end, it has to die, and that's why probably if Jesus Christ existed, Judas might never have been a friend of Jesus. I mean, the the scripts of Judas might be something that say something about Judas, but well, Judas in the end end up being an agent of Jesus Christ, or an agent of Rome, that for which Jesus Christ dies, and then it becomes necessary in order to create the myth. Uh, but maybe Judas never existed, honestly. Maybe Judas was just placed there because they need to create the myth that he was betrayed, and then maybe they just remove one of the disciples, place Judas there, but Judas might be fictional. Well, we don't know. Anyway, that's not the point. But why I say this? Because it seems to be part of the myth, the necessity of righteousness, valorous people. We are not talking about humans. Yeah, we are talking about fetishes, like phenomenologically, statistically, and let's say, yeah, kind of literally a superhuman that always somehow is becomes the the person that creates the new cliche. But the hero is not a new cliche. The hero is a leader, that's a savior, is let's say something that has been in the culture for a long time. And a hero for many people was Hitler. Hitler was the hero of the time for the Nazi Germans and so on and blah blah blah. Some people say that if the Nazi Germany would have won, then we had been, yeah, somehow create a phenomenon of Hitler just as we did of Napoleon. Then, yeah, it will be. It's not the case because there are things that are clear, morally wrong, and also that's why I think that there are many like checks of fascism and what's going on to me, and I have no option but to talk. And I know that this will make sense in the future, but I'm no hero. I'm not someone who wants to. I would like to live, but it seems that they are killing me slowly because every day I have to take the antipsychotics. If I don't take the antipsychotics, I won't be able to sleep. But this is the same technology that in the future will be used for people who has like problems of sleeping problems. Yeah, some people will have eventualities biologically, but it's likely that because they can insert kind of. I have experienced these dreams that are not related to my unconscious. I have seen advertisement in my dreams, and I know that there are already papers talking about this, and this is technically the same neuro network that is studied for the AI. Then in the future, there are companies right now that are thinking how to bin advertisement in everyone's dreams because this is relatively cheap. You just need to have a computer. We already has the data. I mean, the database and the processing, it can be the same for everyone. But at the end, the output is just one emitter that simply will consume as much as it takes to keep signal continuously in your phone, which is not much. Yeah. So then it will be relatively cheap to dream to beam dreams, and but this is the situation. If dreams are being, then it will be illegal. It would be an intromission. But what if people is paid for having these dreams? Then people will receive some commission from these dreams. And what if, let's say, we have a service in which you cannot sleep? Okay, just pay $10 and use our product for free, in a product in which you can sleep, but you will receive advertisement in your dreams. And it will be then, in this case, it will be profitable to not allow people to sleep, because then the people will be using the product for sleep even with advertisement, and that's inhuman. And then some people there was a speech of these valedictorians, a couple, and they were talking about how they were learning technically gardening, because people and plants are the same. Behind these valedictorians was Hillary Clinton just laughing. Yeah, because we are all the NCPs, the non-playable characters. Then it's very interesting that the situation gonna eventually develop, but how it gonna be developed? How you gonna make money out of beaming advertisement? Maybe it will be the same as happened to me. They induce hunger, but the hungers feel so madly that the times I don't eat, I cannot sleep. So then I have to eat, and then I can sleep. Yeah, and it because my illness is induced. Yeah, it's not my biology that is active. Every day I feel that at night time. At the beginning, I used to think that my brain was becoming more active because the medication was wearing, but then I noticed that there is a switch in which the medication starts to leave, and then the technology takes over, and then I start to feel stimulation, and I cannot sleep because I'm always awake. But in some situations, I've been feeling that this technology is not exactly at the same moment, especially during these days in which let's say the cycle of the day changes every day. Then I notice certain variances in which the stimulation is not activated at the same time. Yeah, related to in contrast with the time of the sun. Then before going to sleep, then sometimes I start to feel tired. Then I start to feel excited, but not excited. It's like awake, and the only form, or the only way in which I'm allowed to sleep is after I take my meds, after I eat. Otherwise, I will not be allowed to have that induced kind of sleep as well, and I will not be allowed to not have the hunger. And the hunger is desperate because they combine the hunger with a kind of sensation of anxiousness, stress, but it feels everywhere in your chest, and also is mixed with a kind of needling. It feels like needles. Yeah, I actually asked to my psychiatrist, normal to have this feeling of needles and a kind of pain after you did the antipsychotics? He told me no, but okay, it has happened for a while. Then I was thinking that the stress might be so much that it becomes somehow painful. But no, then I start to notice that since January that they try to induce the last episodes of psychosis, and since then I have been just simply solid on asserting that this is a technology, then they have induced this kind of methods in which it's gonna be painful, it's gonna be kind of painful just psychologically, emotionally, and physically. Because they have been doing this to people close to me, to people, to my family, and to me every day. So they are negating my reality. Why? I mean, instead to just do something different, like okay, happens that you are not someone violent, you are not a spy, you are not someone who is trying to hurt Australia, you are not someone who has done anything criminal in the past, then you, yeah, we think, I mean, they could have done something like, okay, we couldn't prove anything, yeah, simply he is not what we believe he could have been, because there is no evidence for such. Plus, I just discovered recently that I had some kind of autism. So let's say I don't communicate as people does usually. Yeah, when someone see a puppy, nice puppy. I'm a, I'm a dog person, and I've never been a cat person, and blah blah blah, whatever. I never understood that before, because I always will say to everyone that I have to communicate linear and literal, yeah, but I couldn't understand what is not to communicate in that way. So I sort of discovered that recently, and that has changed my mind. Now I'm living in a situation in which I know that there is another kind of subtle communication in which there are social clues, but it's still very difficult to read for me. But since they knew this from before, because it's normal that the people who has autism becomes the ideal targets, then yeah, well, people with autism most likely use the left brain, and they create better clusters, and that's why they can deep have deep knowledge into certain subjects. Now, it seems that then they are denying the reality of people who live, I mean, who has, let's say, the left brain more developed than the right one. And this is a kind of fascism. It's also a kind of, yeah, negligent kind of um, this will be eugenics, even if you don't think. This could be a kind of eugenics. Eugenics is not bad, yeah. If you are having a scanner for your baby, that's not bad, all right. But because you are checking if your baby is going well, but eugenics is bad when you start to kill people just to kill, or try to not allow them to live because their genes are not worth it. Things like you don't want this kind of genes, you don't want this kind of reality, you don't want, it's like, let's say if someone is shorter than this kind of size, these people should not be allowed to live as a human. If this other person, yeah, doesn't have these as we demand, then it shouldn't be allowed to live as a human as well. That's the bad eugenics, yeah, as the one that the Nazis used to use. And it's difficult to relate this to what's going on, but it's happening. It's happening because the people that I met that also have experienced this is people who is very nice, very talkative, where they seems to have also these traits of autism, yeah. So it's the perfect people for experimenting. There are also cultures and social classes that do not experience the same kind of stress signals when communicating. These stress signals are this kind of communication in which you walk in eggshells. Yeah, this is common for, let's say, people who will be in social classes which competence is kind of admire, and also is kind of mm, I mean, competence becomes one of the biggest virtues there. There are other cultures, let's say the Eskimos. The Eskimos will do fishing, where they will do hunting and fishing. They will maybe hunt a penguin or fish because they cannot have plantations of fruits, etc. And they cannot always be lucky fishing and hunting. So they do not prime, or they do not reward the hunter or the fisher. Instead, they feel all entitled to have a piece of the fish or the meat because they understand that it's a question of luck. And if it weren't a question of luck, then those people who hunt the most can say, I'm not gonna share what I have just hunt. Then, therefore, yeah, if you want a piece, you're gonna reward me with something, or if you want a piece of what I hunt, then you're gonna give me something back. So it's actually not polite to say thank you after you have received your meal, because you are entitled of it. Yeah, it's not like it was given to you as an act of kindness. No, it's simple, like without doing that, without having that kind of social order, people die. Yeah, and then hunting or having luck is not rewarded. Yeah, it's not rewarded. Then we see that the dynamics are situational. It depends on the environment. It depends of what is culture and what is not culture. And culture is always evolving. When something doesn't evolve, is because it has been imposed. Yeah, and some people confuse culture with a kind of social paradigm, or social order, or social imposition, yeah, or power imposition, but it's not necessarily culture. So you have to think about this. And well, one of the things with the matrix is like the matrix happened in capitalism. There has been several kind of orders, like social orders. Let's say the hunter gatherers, they will hunt and share. They will have also small polis in which you will have a city, you will have the soldiers, then the soldiers will try to get the kind of reward and prizes after they go to war and bring the riches to the city, etc. We have the imperial era in which communities were conquered and then they were exploited for the riches, etc. But capitalism is peculiar because capitalism allows you to create a company, an enterprise, and then you can be creative, and also it have allowed many kind of creative projects and technological projects to flourish. So this might be the reason why the Soviet Union fell, because their kind of economy was centralized. And the other modern economy, or kind of, let's say, system, will not be able to compete with capitalism for the link between capitalism and war. I think that I did that in another video. But this link is something that needs to be corrected, besides how to be able to spread in a more egalitarian manner certain uh, kind of riches. I mean, let's say it's well known that a lot of uh, material come from Africa, which is very scarce, and these semiconductors then are cheap because they come from labor that is extremely cheap or could be considered as slavery. And if things were fair, then maybe more funds will be more expensive, and then the people there will be living a better life. But that's a problem with capitalism. Okay? It assumes that the consumer is rational, but in many cases the consumer is not rational because those. I mean, if you do a deal with someone, like a deal with a kid of 8 years, and this kid has to work because otherwise dies of hunger. The kid of 8 years who is forced to work as there is no other employment is considered a rational actor. This kind of situations hasn't been fixed in capitalism. And well, I think capitalism also is going to evolve or simply will stop to exist because the printing has been so elevated, there has been so much printing of money that it doesn't make sense anymore. Let's say the situation that happened right now with the tariffs is that United States is the currency to trade internationally, and they can print at any time the currency, and the more the people use this currency, the more demand it has. So it's more convenient for United States to print more money, and this is printed from out of nothing, and it means that United States will always be an advantage. Still, United States make tariffs to other countries, and under the label that they are equitative. And what's the problem with that? It makes you think, if I charge 50% tariffs to United States, it seems just that United States gonna charge 50%. But that's a problem with quantifying. That's the problem with this technology. Then people want to measure, quantify, to be sure of outcomes. Yeah. And when you try to quantify everything, like every single neuron, just to create and to see which concepts, ideas you create or whatever, just to see if they are a spy, a terrorist, if you are whatever. But it happens that, why I say this? Because one of the first voices that I start to hear were like kind of FARC. You are from FARC. You are a guerrilla, and they will say things like campament and things like that. But I have no memory in a campament because I never been in the guerrilla. So I know that they were trying to relate me with guerrilla fighters. Then they tried to relate me with communism. None of that. Well, have no memories of it, so they couldn't, let's say, exploit that because it simply doesn't exist. And they try to induce kind of memories related with terrorism, with violence, with pedophilia, with rape, abusing girls, with me being corrupt. None of that work. None of that work. And because it didn't work, then they start to induce psychosis and see if they were able to induce hate on me, so I could be violent and do an indiscriminate attack in society, and it didn't work as well because I'm not like that. It's not what I want. I'm a person who has read this book. This is the one that takes you out of the matrix. And this kind of book were the ones that I had in my mind before, and these guide me as philosophical, let's say, the a kind of decision making based on the construction of reality. Then, because nothing works, well, they continue doing things. They continue trying to link my brain with other stuff, and they can induce several, let's say, kind of ideas and retrieving kind of memories and use them in the way in which, let's say, I don't know, I could eat some vegetable and then they will bring, let's say, the faces of an animal, and I will be relating the animal with that vegetables. Or let's say I could be listening some music and then they will bring the concept or change the word of the music, so I could relate the lyrics to another kind of concepts. But what I'm talking, keep in mind, this is coming only from my experience. I cannot prove this to you. The only way in which I will able to prove it is you were experiencing what's going on in my mind. But this is called qualia in the in philosophy, and simply no one else can experience qualia as no one else can see in your mind. What the what this technology is able to do is maybe to decode a kind of imagery that is happening in your brain, as well as, let's say, the an AI could reconstruct a better quality of image from a lower quality of image. But okay, since we were about the capitalism and how capitalism will be inducing your dreams, then it happens that first you might need to pay to take the dreams or to take the advertisement out of your dreams. But my concern is this one. One of the things that I noticed in Australia is that I was not dreaming much. So I'm not really sure if this is happening to other people, because I used to always be conscious of my dreams. So I will read my dreams because the dreams is the only door that is direct to your unconscious. And it feels as an intromission, it feels like a rape, that someone takes something so personal from you and then start to beam kind of scenarios in which you have to see how behave in certain situations in the dream, or they just dream advertisement. Yeah, and this is that's an intromission. And then, yeah, I do believe since they couldn't make me a terrorist, since I discovered as soon as I arrived to the hospital that this was technology, when they put me in a situation in which I couldn't exert conscious. Paliperidone is a medication that shouldn't be used in humans. It just kills you quicker, and ideally, according with their strategy, is to kill me quickly. And yeah, under that conditions, yeah, I have not much to do but just leave some legacy of what's going on to me. And if I'm dead by when these videos became kind of famous, it means that they will repeat the strategy. They're gonna explode the idea of the hero, and again they're gonna continue the cycle because it seems that it kept working. And most likely by then, yeah, people will be less able to create consciousness and more likely to believe, let's say, the capitalist propaganda. But again, what happens with capitalism is that it's a very, let's say, effective system in which you can create a company, be creative, and put your product forward. So creativity and yeah, this kind of situation in which you could solve problems and thousands of ideas can flourish is amazing. The problem is that this strength has not been combined with political economy. then it becomes, well, right now what they are doing is making my ear painful, but they had been doing that for a few days. So, oh Jesus, and maybe I got deaf. They had been doing this kind of I mean, sometimes I listen to music, normal volume, and it feels very painful in my ear. Apparently, few people around me has suffered from ear pain, and they I'm trying to see if they one person that I just recently knew, yeah, has has been hurt badly or not, but they can technically if they can they if they want to stop your heart, they can. If they want to leave you blind, they can. If they want to leave you deaf, they can. If they want to leave you with permanent brain damage, they can. If they want to give you an aneurysm, they can. If they want to leave you with an strandus painted, they can. If they want to stop or your let's say if they want to leave your anus open because simply your anus is leaking and they cannot stop it, they can. I mean, just simply it's a muscle. They can control of that. They can control every single thing. So this is the betrayal of humanity. How to stop this? Well, bureaucracy has to be or have a kind of accountability system. If there is no accountability, well, one of the things that people can do always is just get together and be class conscious. Um, I mean, Marx was right about something. Yeah, it's the same thing that Hobbes got right. Is that power comes from the people that concede that power. Yeah, and being class conscious is to know that you are in a field and you share that field with someone else. And let's say if I'm a baker, then um, I have power with my mates who are bakers as well. So we all the college that we are bakers, then we have power over the industry. Yeah. As bakers, we don't have power over the butchers. As bakers, we don't have power over the fishing industry. As bakers, we don't have power over the shoemaking industry. Yeah. So, but when you get together with more people, then you have power over whatever you want to do. And this is something. It's a solution, but it's important. Just take courage, but we can fight in the future horrible war. We can have a dystopian future, or we can take duty of the situation in which we are because we have analyzed our historical positioning and psychological conditioning. So being mindful of this will lead us to take action. So then duty becomes a matter of as well paying attention. Yeah, focus might be an act that is moral, and also it means that in the age of attention economy, then being focused, yes, it's an act of rebelliousness or braveness, or being focused is right, is to be or try to be right, but believe me, this technology makes you lose concentration very fast. They can simply focus my attention on what I hear, focus my attention on what I see, or focus my attention in what I say. Sometimes if I'm about to sleep, they can just play automatically words and I'm not conscious. And I have noticed this because I'm about to wake up or sleep and then they just keep playing words. I remember I noticed this because I was going to sleep I was kind of dreaming, and I was saying something that I was driving a car and I killed someone driving. I mean, it's a situation that never happened. But whilst I was dreaming, I was saying the words, but these words were not myself. Then I regained consciousness and I was speaking words as and telling a history that I didn't know where it come from. And my words were simply not related with my unconscious, not related with me. So then, yeah, why they do that? I don't know. But it feels that this is the situation in which I am. So, well, we have the dreams, Maya, be to have advertisement will require to not allowing people to dream. So then you can charge a product in something like, let's say, YouTube. Use our product, but you will have advertisement. If you want to remove the advertisement, pay. Then maybe someone will say, use my electronic, um, my electronic. That will be, well, this kind of paper that the doctor gives you when when the he gives you medication. Just take this electronic script and then use that script so you can have your sleep back. And if you wanna pay, or your insurance wants to pay, or if you have money or whatever, then you can pay extra, so you don't have the advertisement that they're gonna be on you. And this is very intromissory, but this is more likely the future, and we're gonna watch out for that. Now, this is related as well with the measuring, quantifying, that becomes monitoring, and then controlling. But we can do a whole book about that, a whole new theory. But that's not the point, because I'm trying to make these videos shorter than 1 hour. But then think about this. Capitalism is very creative, and but I mean, we as humans can take decisions in how to lead the system. Yeah. One of the things that I'm gonna talk in another video is about when to do a political decision and when to do a social decision. So sometimes social decisions are debated politically, and it shouldn't be like that. If there is something that belongs to the social realm, it shouldn't be debated politically. Let's say things like, should people have access to food? No. Should people have access to house? No. No. What? No, it should not be even debate, because that's social. It's simply the social stuff. You cannot touch it. You cannot debate over what to do and what to do with the social. What you can debate is the how. Yeah, the how can be debated, but it's, let's say, when you have a social subject that is about people should receive health or not, it should not be debate, because it's social. Okay, it's not political. Politics becomes in how. Let's say, now this is the example that I always give. Like, even let's say when you're gonna have dinner with your family, and someone asks you, maybe your mom tells you, hey, can you bring something to drink, or you are nearby a convenience store, can you bring some soft drink for tonight? Then you will be, yeah, of course, I'll get the soft drink. But when you start to choose the soft drink, you have to think, will I choose the soft drink that we always choose? Will I choose the soft drink that I want for me? Will I choose the soft drink that my brothers and sisters want? Then you start to take a political decision. but what will be the social is thinking like there will be a soft drink. So it's not we are not debating if to bring or not bring soft drinks, because that belongs to the social realm. You're gonna be affecting society negatively if you simply don't bring the soft drink. So what becomes political is the decision what I'm gonna choose. Then you might think, okay, most of the people will want this, then I should bring this stuff. Um, that will be the political correct decision. But I don't know if grandpa's birthday is on, then I should bring the soft drink or that is the favorite for grandpa. Yeah, you see the situation and how it could change. But then, okay, then yeah, you bring the soft drink that you want. Now, the propaganda of capitalism in dreams means that you're gonna have erotic dreams. Maybe you're gonna drive a car and you're gonna feel how it feels. Maybe yeah, you're gonna be in a 3D environment in which you're gonna have a free taste of VR product. That's capitalism. The propaganda of capitalism is to create images, and that's why it's ingenious. Not saying that it's bad, but if this is exploited in the right manner, we're gonna have a great society in the future. Because entrepreneurs create a product with a lot of effort. They put that product forward, and they sell you that product, showing you how it works and how your life can improve. And then you will see images of people using the product being happy. The colors that they will use will be bright. Yeah, the colors that these companies use and the images that they create are mainly fake representations of life. Fake because what's going on in the situation is not a situation that will ever happen in your real life. And we tend to reproduce those situations in which let the propaganda of capitalism start to happen. We tend to reproduce those kind of, let's say, advertisements in which I feel cool because I'm drinking a beer, but yeah, they show you everyone drinking the beer who's very young and has sex appeal, and the people will look happy, and you tend to behave in the same way because we are also social animals that since we are born, we reproduce through mirror neurons what's going on in front of us. That's why when you smile in front of a baby, the babies smile back, and this is very interesting. And then yeah, the capitalism, how to escape the matrix, is about ignoring every single of these images. Simple as that. Anything that is selling you yeah anything that is selling you any advertisement becomes propaganda from capitalism, and that's how you escape the matrix. Just not paying attention to this, choosing what enters in your mind, choosing what doesn't enter in your mind. That's it. But again, nowadays the matrix was again created in such a way that you will not escape it. And at the same time the matrix become reality. If you escape the matrix, let's say take the blue pill, is not about being free, but rather to start a kind of effort towards modifying the matrix for better. Yeah, because capitalism is not about system in the sense that it could be evolved, and it's the only one right now. There is no other option. But what we call capitalism, that at the end it could evolve for good, but it's about to have political willingness to do other things. I talk about several subjects, but okay, I wish I had made my point, which I could have start with making it even quicker. But okay, I hope this served anyway.